All right, welcome back to another episode of the Cannabis Podcast. Today is July 25th, and we're joined by Philosophy's Phillip James Latham again, bringing him back from Los Angeles, where I just visited, and we had a nice little time at Woody Harrelson's Cafe in the woods and had a nice little chat. And in a timely manner, that was the last time that I actually pretty much smoked. So, breaking news, I'm on a smoke break, detox break. So, we're going to talk about that and among other things, some hemp, some bands, some news. So what's going on with you, Phil?
Hey man, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it very much. It was great to see you. Always appreciate the exchange of energy in person. Uh, I'll never forget sitting in a broken chair for like the better part of an hour and a half before I finally realized I needed to shift and get myself up out of a broken chair. But it was cool to hang out with little kittens at Woody
That was
Harrelson's
that
place.
was
That was
pretty
tight.
cool.
Except the birds. The birds are loud. That was
That was
like
that was it was like
intense.
offset. You're like, this is really cool and this is really annoying. You're like bird, cat, kill bird.
It was there were certain moments where it was like sensory overload and I was just like, whoa, what is happening? I was like, I
Yeah.
know I'm stoned, but this is a lot. Even if I
This
was sober,
yeah.
this is a lot.
There was a
Um,
lot coming at us.
but yeah, man, it was great to see you. Just hey, trying to keep it moving and make sure little baby's taken care of, wife is happy, and you know, as much as I can control is moving in a positive direction. So
100%. All we
yeah,
can
man.
control is all we can control, which isn't much.
But I'm also
So,
really glad to know that I was the last person that you smoked weed with. That's very,
yes.
very
That was.
humbling.
You were. And now I'm on like day 6 or 7. So we're gonna get into an article about cannabis use and sleep, which is now a hot topic for everybody in the world. And it's from the Oxford Oxford Academic National. I don't know why am I on PubMed right now. Um,
You might
but
have opened that up on your end.
chronic cannabis use and sleep architecture, a cross-sectional analysis of big word outcomes in a sleep clinic cohort. So just for a little update with everybody, once a year for at least a month, I like to do a dry month, reset my brain chemistry, my tolerance, and let us know in the comments how that affects you. But the way it affects me is my armpits sweat a lot and my appetite gets a little weird. I don't really have much of an appetite. I don't eat much in general, but now it's even less. And so the sleep, my dreams are very, very vivid, and but I sleep lighter, and that's my own personal analysis. What about you, Phil? How does it affect you when you take a little break?
Yeah, so I think we were talking about that a little bit before we hopped on and started recording. But yeah, like there's been several instances over the last, I don't know, couple decades that I've been a consumer where I've just stopped for one reason or another. And I'll say that like sleep doesn't necessarily get impacted in terms of like an inability to fall asleep. But I will say though that the dreaming side of this whole study is very accurate to my experience, that the dreams that I've had get very vivid and visceral, and like sometimes I'll like wake up in like a panic or like super flustered. And I was telling you, about talking to my wife about it, and I was just like, honey, I had this dream and I was underwater, but then I was like in a house that was like kind of underwater, partially submerged, and I had to like swim room to room, and it was like rescuing people and pets and things. And I was like, this is just a lot. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it was really interesting timing to hear not only your experience in terms of how it's been impacting your sleep when you've gone uh, without, but then to see this study come out, interesting timing for sure.
It's and without fail, it's I'm going to read the objectives real quick from the Oxford academic one. And without fail, every time I take a break, it's the same thing. And I get exhausted after 4, 5, 6 days because the sleep, you got to stay busy. You got to do stuff. You can't just sit around and, do nothing with all your newfound energy. And when you do that, you're draining energy, but you're not really replenishing it because you're not really eating that much. So no joke, I have lost 8 pounds in 5 days.
Whoa.
And now that wasn't all from just not smoking. Like the first day or two, I didn't really eat. I just kind of fasted on water for like 48 hours. So that's a little disclaimer. But it takes a couple days for your appetite because I would smoke before I ate almost anything, and which isn't good. Makes it taste better, but doesn't really necessarily help your digestion. So the abstract of this article from Oxford Academic is pretty interesting, because it says basically what we have been saying. Hold on. Why does it keep changing mine? I don't want that one. Okay. I keep putting it on, and it keeps going away. Okay. Basically, is they assessed whether long-term daily cannabis use is associated with alterations in overnight sleep architecture at a Canadian sleep clinic. And so they retrospectively analyzed overnight studies from about 1,500 adult sleep clinic patients. Exposure was chronic cannabis use defined as more than daily consumption for more than a year. Never users served as a reference group. 9 different outcomes: total sleep time, sleep onset latency, wake after sleep, all this, latency were all modeled with outcome appropriate regressions adjusted for demographic, lifestyle, comorbidity factors, medication, sleep related covariates, which is pretty good. A lot of times they leave out stuff and they just look, you put 10 people in there and you're like, these are 10 drastically different people with drastically different lifestyles. So the results were that chronic cannabis use was associated with higher wake after sleep onset, lower sleep efficiency, and elevated sleep efficiency. Nominally, total sleeping time was lower among cannabis users. Effect directions and magnitudes persisted across sensitivity analysis. The conclusion was among sleep clinic patients, long-term daily cannabis use was associated with greater nocturnal wakefulness, given that most participants have moderate to severe sleep should be interpreted with caution. Studies detailing dose, timing, and cannabinoid composition are needed to clarify causality and clinical relevance. That's a great point right there. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my gosh, it's like that to me is indicative of a seemingly great study, but then you're not really getting at the heart of the how and the why.
Hmm.
Because if you've like, I think that they controlled for a lot of things. I think that the, you know, factors in terms of, demographics, lifestyle, comorbidities, all the things that you're like, they had to kind of calibrate everything to be applicable uniformly in a certain degree. But then to say there was nothing regarding the dose, timing, or cannabinoid composition, those are all very important. Like,
They're
if I'm gonna
extremely important.
if I'm gonna, smoke a whole joint versus take 10 dabs, those are astronomically different dosages, although it may take about the same time. And again, how long are you taking to smoke that joint? How many dabs are you taking at one time before you go to sleep? Are you eating a, 5 milligram edible with CBN and CBD and, just a little bit of THC versus 100 milligram pure THCA, chocolate or like little
Right.
fucking
I was just about to
Tootsie
say
Roll or
this is just
whatever.
smoking too. Like this is
Right.
just smoking. This isn't even an edible versus a 10 milligram, 50 milligram, or 100 milligram versus CBN, which is heavier, or CBG versus CBD or THC, THCA. It's a huge factor. But to your point, they say at the bottom, a statement of significance. Cannabis is frequently used. This is actually very good. Cannabis is frequently used to manage sleep problems, yet its long-term effects on sleep architecture remain uncertain. This study provides the largest clinic-based assessment to date, linking chronic daily use to objectively measured increases in nocturnal wakefulness among sleep clinic patients primarily referred for sleep apnea, suggesting that habitual cannabis use may fragment sleep. These findings raise important questions for clinicians and researchers given the widespread use of cannabis as a sleep aid. Longitudinal and experimental studies are needed to clarify how dose, timing, and cannabinoid profile influence sleep and to explore downstream consequences for cognition, mood, and long-term health. Clarifying these pathways will guide patient counseling, therapeutic decisions, and public policy as legalization and social acceptance continue to expand. So, literally, that statement is what we were talking about offline a second ago, or even what we just said online about, okay, the first day or two, you are irritable. All you're thinking about is you want to smoke. Honestly, go watch Half
Mhm.
Baked. That's like, he goes, man, all I was thinking about doing was getting high. I was so irritated. And it's true because you're like, man, like this is day one. How long do I have to do this for? But you get a little more irritated. But if you just, for me, artistically, I plan a bunch of projects. And so my brain goes in overdrive, which helps me fall asleep. But then on the flip side, I don't sleep that deeply. So I maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours of sleep, and I wake up kind of ti more tired.
hmm hmm Well, so it's
So,
interesting also, the it's interesting to understand that it is having an impact on your sleep architecture in terms of like the different stages of sleep, what happens in your brain during each of those stages. Because like one of the things that I saw in one of the articles that was written up about it is like it impacts your ability to get into REM sleep. And REM sleep is when your brain actually like kind of puts and categorizes your experiences of the day into like different compartments, so to speak. I know it's probably
mhm.
a really unsophisticated way of explaining that process, but that's
The
kind of
Cannabis
my,
Podcast way of explaining it.
yeah, there you go. Um, but the other thing that it made me think about was this is a great starting point. And I think that it exemplifies what you and I have also said for a long time in terms of there being a resurgence or a renaissance, so to speak, of academic studies around cannabis consumption. And one of the other things that it made me think about was the fact that I don't know if you know this, but cannabis use actually also impacts people's experiences when they get put under anesthesia. I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah, I only found this out after I had gone under anesthesia and I was told about how my body reacted. So
What'd
it
they
was a couple
say?
years. So this is like multiple layers relevant. I went in to get like I had a sleep study done for my own diagnosis of sleep apnea. I do have sleep apnea, snore. I like normally if I sleep on my side, it's not as bad, but as soon as I hit my back, and like the other thing is like if I've
Mhm.
drank alcohol at all, way worse.
Mm.
Anyways, the different part of this kind of similar subject. Anyways,
Another
so I
episode.
had the sleep study done, and then uh the guy who my wife was working for, he has a organization business called Breathe Institute. It's literally like their whole thing. And he also does deviated septum repairs. So he septoplasty or whatever.
Mm.
So I got my septum fixed or whatever because basically it was like an S kind of a
Yep.
thing. And he's just like, yeah, you got to get it to be one uniform division. It's like, okay, cool. So this is like there's many aspects of like my experience with the surgery that are hilarious and personally, embarrassing to some degree if I wanted it to be. Anyways, so I came out and it wasn't until like a day or two later when I was talking to the people that, were kind of peripherally aware that I had gotten the surgery and they were like, yeah, doc said that you had convulsions. Like you had like basically mini seizures while you were under anesthesia because you consume cannabis. That's one of the reactions that people physiologically have when they're put under anesthesia. I was like, whoa, that's kind of gnarly. And I would assume kind of disconcerting for people, in
Right.
the room, It's like, oh gosh, this guy's like
Yeah,
seizing out on the table. Like, whoa.
they're like, did you
So
touch him? What'd you do?
right, right. And because like, I mean, I went out super quick. But yeah, it was just it's one of those other weird things. So I would say also that that is something that could have some kind of scientific study put behind it to figure out, okay, what is it about
Mhm.
either the cannabinoid or endocannabinoid system that's now having a reaction with the anesthesia substance.
Right. That's interesting you
So,
say that because my mentor years ago, Michael J. Pollard, when I was in LA, near the last few months of his life or month, he went to the hospital. And so, he was he was monitoring in a bed and on anesthesia sometimes to do surgeries or whatever. And, I always used to bring him, some cannabis at the home he lived in, and we'd sit in the back and smoke. And everyone knew. They didn't say anything. It was like it's a motion picture television fund, which is a pretty dope little spot. All the old legends of film that weren't really they predated residuals, right? So they didn't
mhm,
get tons of residuals. They don't have the big money that people have now. So all these producers like Spielberg and Cameron and all these people pool a bunch of money and help take care of them, and which is pretty cool. And I took him edibles because obviously he couldn't smoke in the hospital. So I took him some of those cushy punches, and back in the day when those were around.
mhm.
And next time I went to see him, the doctor was like, "Hey, you're not in trouble or anything, but like you cannot bring him edibles anymore. Like absolutely not, because it's affecting the medication we're giving him." And I was like, "Dude, heard. Like I'm not
Yeah.
trying to kill my buddy. I was just trying to bring him. I didn't think anything of it." And they were like, "Yeah, no, like we need a whole complete flush of his whole system out." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't think about that until you even said something. So that's very interesting that that's a common thing that they would actually need to do some more studies on it. How is it affected?
Again, so I think this is a good segue though to the next thing, obviously being the ban. And,
Hmm.
I think that, for one side of our conversation, you and I have been advocates for, personal freedom to do whatever you want with your body, but also accessibility. And, if you do not have a quote unquote legal way of getting something, but for your own experience, it is something that you find to be beneficial for yourself, you're going to find a way to get the thing that helps you feel better. So you're just perpetuating an illicit market. So
So I
that
hear that
like
I hear that excuse about firearms
hmm,
too,
weird,
when they say, "Well, if you want a gun, someone's going to get one, so why ban them?" Okay, cool. Keep the same energy when it comes to the plant.
right?
So, which is there's your segue. Go for it.
So, you and I were talking about this, but so I found this article here from KERA News. It's a NPR for North Texas. What to know about the Delta 8 ban that takes effect July 31st. And so, just real quick, article starts off,
Starting to
beginning July
rush.
31st, Texas will ban the sale of smokable products containing Delta 8, Delta 10, and several other intoxicating cannabinoids. This follows a Texas Supreme Court ruling that clears the way for long-delayed regulations to take effect. Those changes could reshape the industry that has grown rapidly since hemp was legalized in 2019, and it's likely to just the first step in a broader fight at the state capitol over THC, the psychoactive component in marijuana. Uh, Austin Wood, staff writer for the Dallas Observer, wrote about the new regulations in his article, Delta 8, the other THC products to be banned in Texas starting July 1st. Uh, so yeah, so then he talks and blah 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 blah. There's a lot of uncertainty. Wood says that the legal way back and forth over what hemp can and can't be sold in Texas has been confusing for business owners. The Farm Bill helped them so here's kind of the crux of it. The economic impact. There are more than 9,100 stores licensed to sell hemp products in Texas, and the hemp industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Wood said the ban's impact on businesses who sell hemp products will be significant. This is an industry that's evolved around a lot of these products since 2019, so 7 years worth of a development of business. Business owners are definitely going to have to adapt and evolve with whatever comes next. So I think, for one, it was kind of a funny loophole to find that, like, I remember going to Alabama to do an interview, and I was in Alabama. I stopped to, pick up some waters
Huntsville?
for, huh? Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah, did you go to see Werner von Braun and all those ex
no,
people down there?
no, this was for the vaccine film, actually. So actually, we interviewed one of the doctors who was one of the people that actually pushed back against the implementation of the COVID shot mandates.
Mm,
She's awesome. Teresa, I'm blanking on her last name, but like, literally the interview made me cry.
mm.
That woman is a hero. Um, Sorry, that totally got me on a
Sorry, go
diversion path.
ahead, keep
It's
going.
okay. So to finish off though, yeah, going into a gas station to buy a bunch of waters for myself and the crew, uh, me and the other guy that I was there with, and then seeing all these like weed products, I was
Yeah.
like, what? And it's like Delta 8, Delta 10. I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, yo, wait, homie, is this weed? He goes, yeah. I'm like, what?
There's a lot of layers to it.
What?
So it's very interesting because July 31st, 13 in reverse, is what's interesting is that the last 6 to 12 months they have been banning and then it would get overturned, banning, overturned. In the meantime, I have smoke shops right around me here in Austin where I'd walk in and I say, "Hey, what's going on?" Half the shelf is now gone because it's all smokable.
Mm,
Smokable is the number one, pre-rolls are the number one seller of weed across the world. Edibles are catching up quickly, but pre-rolls are and flower is the number one. So if I had a tinfoil hat on, I would tell you this is their way of destroying intentionally small businesses before they legalize it nationally and run it all through government operated shops
that makes a lot of sense.
because that's what they did in California.
Yeah.
That's when they'd say, okay, you need a license and 150 or $500,000 in capital, like you got to be liquid and it has to be in a green zone. Okay, I've got that. Here's the money. Oh, hey, you know what? By the way, the green zone's over there now, and the licenses aren't transferable. You're gonna have to do it again. Okay, so you do it again, and they go, oh, you know what? Actually, it's over there again. Oh, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you're out of business now? Hey, MedMen, there's this infrastructure here that you can buy for pennies on the dollar. And then you could vertically integrate all your licenses and license share. Oh my God, there goes the small businesses.
It's funny. I
But
actually
that's
just
just
drove by.
speculation. There's no, that's just speculation.
I just drove by a med and saw a MedMen. I was like, oh, they still do exist. I just drove by one a couple
Oh
days
no,
ago.
they're done. They're out of business.
It was open. There were people
I mean,
inside.
they might still be operating like one or two. Those might be like independently owned, like
Oh,
franchised out
yeah,
MedMen names.
that'd make sense.
But MedMen, the one in Long Beach that was right by my house closed, the one by the airport closed. Like they're done. It's over
Oh,
because it
interesting.
was a venture capitalist grift.
Mm,
And they don't give the people that haven't been in it for a while, they don't care about the plant. They don't care about medicine. They care about money.
yeah,
And notice I asked AI and I said, okay, is this band just synthetic? Because the other bands have just been synthetic THCA, THCP, Delta 8, Delta 10, which I agree with. I don't
yeah.
think you should be smoking
Same.
anything synthetic or consuming
No.
anything synthetic. But this one isn't just that. It's all except Delta 9, which is the Farm Bill. So the
Mm.
Farm Bill is federal, so it can't affect that. So everything else that's not in the Farm Bill that's Delta 9 below 0.3% is banned.
I hadn't even thought about that. That it's because the governance extends. Um, I don't know why is it saying this? This tab is using extra resources. Dude, the hill. You better stop
And
this.
well, and so to the point of the KERA article, it says Delta 8, 10, and some other things. That includes like THCP, THCA, like all these other cannabinoids that I really wasn't very familiar with, but also like CBG and actually THCA is just cannabis before it's oxidized.
before it's decarbed. Yeah.
Yeah, before it's decarbed. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh, I was reading. So there was a guy that I got connected with who was part of the Kentucky Cooperative, I think, and he was telling me about how it's actually it's the acid forms of cannabinoids that are actually sometimes more impactful than like the decarbed versions and stuff.
mhm.
So like, anyways, that's my own personal like I got to do more research subject,
And
but
you know,
I found
perfect
that very
timing,
interesting.
who was the architect of the Farm Bill, who's
Was it
going
Mitch?
going strong right now,
It
old
was
Mitchy Poo.
yeah.
Mitchy
Was
Poo
the
was the Farm Bill, and you know,
so
maybe
much.
they'll bury him with hemp. Who knows?
Oh, wouldn't that be poetic?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Speaking of hemp,
yeah.
I guess we could. Was that the next one you wanted to go to? Was the hemp or
Yeah, the bipartisan duo,
there
the
you go.
Hill.
Boom.
Boom. Go for it.
Oh,
Oh, I could do it. Yeah, yeah, okay.
go for
Okay.
it.
Okay. The other one that we found was bipartisan duo introduced bill defining regulatory framework for hemp products. This is July 22nd. Representatives Angie Craig, Democrat from Minnesota, and Andy Barr, no relation to Bill Barr, I did look it up, uh, Republican from Kentucky, on Wednesday introduced a bill designed to set up a clear regulatory framework for hemp and hemp-derived THC products. The Lawful Hemp Protection Act, LHPA, no significant acronyms, would establish the first comprehensive federal regulatory framework for hemp products. Craig, the top Democrat on the House Agriculture Committee, credited her state with being the model for, quote, responsible hemp regulation. My common sense legislation will give regulatory clarity to Minnesota farmers. I don't really care what you have to say about it. Yada, yada, yada. Kentucky has demonstrated that hemp can be successfully regulated. Yes, it has. Blah, blah, blah. Uh, I hate my scroll is messing up on my mouse, but anyways.
The hell
But
does that? It's weird.
Barr's office told The Hill that the legislation in the House has the White House's approval. That's important. The Kentucky Republican is hopeful that there will soon be a companion bill in the Senate. A White House official, however, pointed the Hill to a December 2025 executive order where President Trump ordered the expediting of marijuana rescheduling and launching Medicare coverage of CBD as the administration's, quote, definitive position. The official also referred to an April Truth Social post where Trump said more must be done beyond this executive order. Senator Tim Sheehy, a Republican from Montana, last week said a similar hemp bill in the Senate was forthcoming as, quote, a bipartisan group was coalescing around the issue. He was optimistic that in a hyper-partisan time, when it appears like we can't get anything passed, this might actually be a subject where we can see both executive and legislative success. So I think that this is positive, moving in a positive direction. The framework introduced by Barr and Craig will separate industrial hemp from consumable hemp products, requiring finished products to undergo testing to ensure the products comply with synthetic cannabinoid restrictions. Compounds found naturally in the plant are permitted. Thumbs up. To be approved by the FDA, all hemp products would have to be cultivated, processed, finished, and packaged within the U.S., according to the bill's text. The FDA will regulate products with established maximum cannabinoid levels. I think that's also interesting and important because so much of the hemp industry's product that we have domestically actually is imported still currently, I believe. The measure would also set a 21 and over age requirement to keep hemp products away from children. Packaging for products would have warning labels on them addressing pregnancy risk, impairment risks, and other warnings deemed necessary by the U.S. Surgeon General, a la cigarettes and alcohol. The safety regulations extended the enforcement age, blah, 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 blah. Anyone under 21 who consumes hemp product could face up to $1,000 per violation. Law enforcement will handle hemp impairment while driving the same way driving under the influence of alcohol and other drugs is handled. So there goes our whole, you got to have some way to test people roadside. Go for it.
Question, teacher. Uh,
Yes, Brett.
um, do we know where we get the majority of our hemp imports from?
China, right?
Used to be.
Who's it now?
90% of our total annual import value is from Canada.
That was going to be my second guess.
And who has Mr. Orangeface been talking about bringing into our world?
52nd state,
Hey,
the great state of Canada.
the great
Hey.
state of Canada with
So,
maybe Greenland. Um,
so some hemp maple syrup, maybe?
Maple hemp.
Maple hemp? Ooh,
Ooh.
dude, did we just,
I
we
think we
might have.
did. I
I
think
think,
I think we just came up with maple hemp.
I mean,
Hey,
I literally
cut
just
it,
saw
cut it, cut it.
I literally just saw a guy last night who was in the middle of like this great like Epstein deep or it was actually Ghislaine Robert Maxwell's dad exploration into like the whole Maxwell family tree. And right in the middle of it, he's just like, and you know what? I love the fact that you guys love my sour buddies. And he just goes on this whole rant thanking his audience for like being huge consumers of his product. So like just saying, we have now potentially trademark like hemp maple. We'll workshop that. Anyways, um, the bill also establishes a quote workable THC threshold of 1% total THC and sets consistent standards for cultivation for farmers. So this is again one of the things that I think is so silly. How are farmers expected to modulate and impact the plant's natural inherent ability to produce a cannabinoid?
We have farmers?
Well, Bill Gates,
Right. He'll just
how's Bill Gates gonna make sure he controls how much THC percentage is in
he's
his
gonna
hemp
grow it in a
plant?
lab. And so here's what's interesting. Here's just some fun hemp facts for everybody listening. If you've made it this far, I appreciate it. Smash the like, subscribe, tell your friends. Type into Google AI, tell me about hemp in Ukraine. Ukraine is rapidly emerging as a European powerhouse for hemp, executing a massive regulatory overhaul and industrial expansion to revitalize its economy amidst the ongoing war, which they legalized cannabis during the war.
Hmm.
So that's a fact.
Hmm.
So right here it says, despite the challenges of the Russian invasion, Ukraine's legalized medical cannabis, deregulated in industrial cultivation, opened some of Europe's largest processing infrastructure to secure independence economically. Here's what's interesting. Ukraine shares a deep, centuries-old bond with hemp. Global innovation. In 1982, Ukraine's Institute of Best Crops became the first in the world to breed a fully reliable non-THC hemp variety, which serves as the genetic backbone for modern global industrial hemp.
Hmm.
Soviet breadbasket. During the Soviet era, the Ukrainian SSR was one of the largest producers globally. This is fascinating, dedicating over 150,000 hectares to hemp cultivation for domestic oil and industrial fibers. Now, for everybody listening
That was
that doesn't know what a hectare is, 1 hectare is, what is it,
two
Phil?
2.5 acres.
2.5 acres. Now, I'm not good at math, but what's 2.5 times 150,000?
Probably close to 400,000.
400,000 acres of hemp in just Ukraine, which is the size of what? Like
Texas? Isn't it the
not
size of Texas?
maybe.
No, I can't remember.
What state is Ukraine the size of in the US? Okay, just to get a reference point. Yeah, Texas, there you go. It's Ukraine is 230. Ukraine is approximately 233,000 square miles. Approximately 268,000 is Texas. So that's pretty big.
It's pretty big.
Twice the size of New Mexico.
Hmm.
Um, Whoa, roughly equal to the combined size of California and Oregon. Damn, no wonder Russia. I didn't think they were that big. I thought it was maybe like Minnesota or like Ohio or something like that.
No, it's
Um,
bigger than that.
that's pretty
Because like
wild.
it's got the same kind of climate versatility and variance that like some parts of Russia have. Because like Russia,
Mm,
like if you've ever looked on a map, like Russia's fucking enormous, like the west to east. And I was also listening to something talk about like the Russia pre-USSR and like how like cultural and ethnic Russians then getting like all fractured up during the USSR, and then how that whole region got restructured after World War II and or not
Mhm.
after World War II, fall of the Soviet Union and like all the dude. History is
Whoa.
history is not what
Okay.
you read in the McGraw-Hill textbooks that Robert Maxwell owned. Make sure you do
That's a
research
different podcast, different
outside
podcast.
of McGraw-Hill textbooks.
What's crazy, I just sent you the little AI thing that I'm reading from. The Ukrainian government has removed the roadblocks to integrate the market into the European Union. Farmers are no longer required to obtain government permits or licenses to grow industrial hemp. Instead, they log the crops via the digital e-hemp registry.
What? Where is this?
What?
What is, oh, eHemp system. What?
What?
That's
Which means that's truly what they call seed to sale, track and
yeah.
trace.
Yep.
So that's I saw that up at Henry's Farms, which is the first partner with the United States government for track and trace and seed to sale.
Were they really
So,
the first?
yep, that's what they told me. Because they were growing Charlotte's Web,
Yeah, I remember.
and that was
Yeah,
before they passed the hemp legislation in California. And I was like, "Hey, you guys are growing hemp," and he's like, "We don't talk about hemp." I was like, "Ha ha," and he's like, "No, seriously." And I was like, "Oh,
huh?
what?"
I've showed you the pictures of me there, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had that
I mean,
conversation before.
like it's beautiful. Like Mendocino is beautiful.
Yeah.
Spot Rock Mountains, gorgeous. I mean, it's a I mean, what's the movie called is it called Murder Mountain, Murder Inc. or something like that? Murder Mountain on
Oh,
Netflix about
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Emerald Triangle.
yeah.
Um, but all that stuff is insanely, I didn't know any of that. Like, which means
Interesting.
there is not to be Mr. again, tinfoil hat, but right here it says hemp for reconstruction. Innovative initiatives like Hemp Ukraine Recover, like that's literally called it, Hemp Ukraine Recover. That's the thing I sent you, are using eco-friendly hempcrete to rapidly build carbon zero refugee housing and orphanages for displaced families in Western Ukraine.
Wow. Wait,
What?
where is this? Where is this? Where is
Here,
this?
I just sent it to you.
Defensive Hemp Build magazine.
That Now
So,
I get why there's no news coming out of that area.
uh, also, I gotta send this to my homie
Look at this
because
breaking news.
this is crazy. I hope that doesn't pop up over there.
What?
Don't. Okay.
The specific ecological benefits of hemp for restoring war-damaged Ukrainian soil, Ukrainian hemp seeds. What? Like it says they're actively pushing hemp as a more stable alternative for farmers to bypass the highly politicized and contested EU grain corridors. And who
Wow.
was the world's number one or
December
two
17th.
exporter of grain and wheat?
Ukraine.
Exactly. But now what are they going to export?
Hemp.
Let's fucking go.
That's just so crazy because
This is crazy, dude.
okay, I love that people are watching our minds get blown in real
Like
time.
this
This
is
is
I
awesome.
didn't like this is my live. This is my reaction every time when I'm sitting there reading them, but I'm usually like, what the fuck is going what?
So I don't know if I've told you this, but a buddy of mine is actually working on a product
Did that say
that's
Texas Healthy Homes?
Texas healthy. Yes, it does. Should we click that? We're gonna click that. Texas Healthy Homes. Take me to Texas Healthy
You can't
Homes.
click.
Yeah, there it goes. Cut energy bills and live toxin free. Materials make the difference. Hempcrete walls, all natural. Rammed earth, compressed earth, straw bale, light clay straw, cob.
I would love to find out where Texas America First gets all that hemp from.
Hmm. Design. So
Oh, that's
this is super
crazy.
crazy. Well,
That's cool.
this is awesome.
I might have to book a consultation.
I was literally just gonna say the same thing, because this goes into a completely different tangent of current business endeavors that I'm pursuing. Anyways, back to you and this and us, and the last thing that I think we said we wanted to talk about was this little fun fact,
I
because we're
just
talking
signed
about
up
you.
for the Hemp Building 101 resource toolkit.
Sick. Send me that link and I'll sign up myself too. So
Okay.
the last thing that we wanted to talk about was something that you asked me before we got started was how many or how much hemp was planted at Chernobyl, because you and I both knew already that, yeah, of course, hemp was planted at Chernobyl to help remediate the soil and pull all the nuclear waste out of the soil and into the plant so that it make the soil more livable. And then just recently, I'm seeing at least all these articles coming out about the wildlife coming back and repopulating the Chernobyl area and the flora flourishing there again. But none of them really mention the significant impact of hemp, because who would know how much hemp impacted the area if you don't know how much hemp was actually planted? So I asked Gemini, hey Gemini, how much hemp was planted in and around Chernobyl? It says, while industrial hemp has been widely celebrated and studied for its ability to perform phytoremediation, absorbing heavy metals, radioactive isotopes like strontium-90 and cesium-137 and other toxins from contaminated soils, there's no official or exact measurement of how hemp was planted at or around Chernobyl. We'll get past the fact that there's no accurate number and scroll down here. The 300 hectares figure. General
So
commercial. Go ahead.
I just double checked that. After you say this, I'll tell you the rebuttal of this.
Okay. The 300 hectares figure. General commercial and agricultural reclamation products using hemp in broader regions affected by the Chernobyl fallout, such as parts of Ukraine and neighboring areas, aiming to restore abandoned farmland, have scaled up over the years. Some agricultural reports cite local movements growing roughly 300 hectares of hemp in affected areas to transition fields back to productive use, but this represents localized farming initiatives rather than a blanket coverage of the total exclusion zone, which is fair because I gave it kind of broad parameters and saying we don't really know because that is kind of an undefined region. I'm like, all right, fine, fair enough. What's your rebuttal?
So I double checked it and triple checked it, and it said, I just sent it in the chat. It says the source of the 300 hectares rumor.
Hmm.
If you've read that 300 hectares of hemp were planted, that statistic's actually from a completely different project in Puglia, Italy,
Oh, what?
in which is crazy that Italy also did it. I just found that out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in 2011, Italian farmers planted hemp to clean up massive heavy metal pollution caused by the Ilva steel plant. The project scaled from 3 hectares up to 300, approximately 741 acres, because articles regularly mention the Italian project right next to the historic Chernobyl trials. The numbers frequently get uh, attributed to Ukraine. So
Interesting.
either way, Italy still planted 300 hectares, which is 600, 700
700,
acres,
741 approximately.
741 acres of hemp. That's a lot. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Like, especially if it's just all grouped together. Like, that's not just like, you know,
Sporadic
spaced out.
patches.
Um, but what's interesting about this is that if you go back up, it says exact, you use Gemini, I'm using Google AI, where it says exact acreage or total land area figures for the industrial hemp plant at Chernobyl were never publicly disclosed in scientific literature or corporate briefs, as operations began as restricted field trials rather than a generalized mapping project. Okay, just like
Hmm.
Henry Ford lost his equation for his best invention he's ever made, which is his car that he made out of hemp.
The soybean car.
Soybean. My bad. It was soybean. It wasn't hemp. Um, Plantings officially began in 1998 within the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So literally within the so however big that spill was, you can look that up. How big was the Chernobyl spill? Obviously, it was the biggest in the history besides Fukushima, which no one really talks about anymore. But the collaborators, this is what's interesting, conducted by the U.S. biotech firm Phytotech. alongside the Ukrainian Academy of Agricultural Sciences located in Glukov. Hmm.
Hmm.
So what they were doing is obviously they were trying to do phytoremediation to the radioactive soil that, and now you're seeing all these articles, and you can even pull them up, everyone around the world saying, oh my God, look at all the wildlife and vegetation that's coming back to Chernobyl years ahead of schedule. Looks, nuclear energy is not that great or not that harmful. Look how much. Do you see how they're specifically leaving out so much? Like they don't even mention that they planted hemp, let alone that hemp is basically the main driver of why it's speeding up. Because, little quick overview, hemp can take in 4 times the amount of CO2 as a tree can in a quarter of the time.
Hmm.
So when everyone's like, plant a tree, that's cool, plant hemp. There's a movie
Yes.
called Hempsters starring Woody Harrelson. I suggest
Yeah.
everybody take it's free on YouTube. Everybody should watch it. He's been, you know,
Yep.
but celebrities or anybody else can only say and do so much because, as we all know, there's a ceiling that you cannot lift up. Um, and it's called government.
Indeed.
So it's fascinating that no one knows how much, but let's look at, let's do a little pattern recognition and curate things for people. Okay. Henry Ford timeline. Let's start there. Henry Ford creates a hemp car that runs on basically ethanol oil that's lighter than steel and tougher than steel. Then World War II happens, and then he loses the equation of his best invention ever when they could have put that in the planes and been lighter and faster and saved a bunch of lives. It's interesting that they didn't do that. And then after the war, the Industrial Revolution, war, all that kind of stuff, kind of post World War II Americanism happens. And then in the 80s, you have Chernobyl, which they then plant hemp there, which was about 40, 50 years ago now. And they said, oh, it's going to take hundreds of years or so long for everything to come back because nuclear is bad. And then now all this hemp stuff's legalization's going on. Ukraine just did all this stuff and all this war is popping off, and no one's of the know. Obviously, you just could tell by our reactions, and we cover this all the time, that they're like actively bringing it back, and they're just not saying anything.
Mm.
Like,
So wild.
like that's
So wild.
crazy. Like
It's
that's
so
that's an
wild.
exact timeline. And then during a war, Ukraine legalizes cannabis. In Texas, July 31st, they ban everything, but yet it's still legal in the Farm Bill nationally. And then Trump reschedules cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And then just recently, this is our next segue into some
Mm.
Democratic senators introduced a bill to nationally, federally decriminalize cannabis. Breaking news. Mr. John Sweatshirt Fetterman.
Bada bing. So here's a quick summary. Democratic Senators Cory Booker, Ron Wyden, and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, joined by 14 colleagues, have reintroduced the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, CAOA. This bill aims to federally legalize marijuana by removing it from the Controlled Substances Act, allowing states to regulate it. The CAOA establishes a federal regulatory framework, funds cannabis research, ends discrimination against users for federal benefits, and strengthens workers' protections. It also proposes federal taxation and regulation under the TTB with FDA labeling standards. A key focus is restorative justice, using tax dollars to reinvest in communities harmed by the war on drugs and helping those impacted by past criminalization. The legislation also addresses hemp THC products, negating a looming ban. This move comes as the Trump administration considers a less comprehensive reclassification of cannabis. Senators emphasize correcting historical wrongs and public health.
And so we have 50 states, right? and some territories. So currently, 24 states have legalized recreational adult use cannabis. That's almost half of the country, while 40 states permit legal medical marijuana. So we're right at the precipice of having a 50-50, almost majority cannabis legal country, which is why I would guess all this is happening now before that domino falls. And they're trying to get ahead of it.
Yep.
So, but it says the COA, CAOA or whatever, it strips it, like you said, from the Controlled Substances Act entirely and expunges federal records.
Mm.
So, but it says that's look at the wording on that. It expunges federal records, not state records.
State, yeah.
So, and that because they don't have, if you decriminalize it and then leave it up to the states, then Texas would have to pass a bill or wherever would pass a bill. And I could see a lot of people being like, yeah, we'll legalize it, but we're not gonna let you off the hook for what you used to do. We make money off you in prison.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
wow,
great.
I just learned a lot today.
Same, dude. Same. 100%.
Like that's
This is why I like doing this.
yeah, me too. Usually we find it out before we say it on the air, but that's pretty cool that I learned about the Puglia, Italy.
Yep.
I learned about first off, you're the one that told me today or yesterday that they're reintroducing a thing to legalize it. I didn't even see that because I've been too stressed out from not smoking. Uh, that I'm just like, I'm not going to talk about cannabis at all. I'm just kind of not going.
Oh man. Well, hey man, it's always enlightening talking to you. I think that for all intents and purposes, things are headed in the right direction. I want to maintain my positive optimism, attitude of
Mhm.
gratitude, and hope that the people that are going to be able to, make the decisions that are going to impact the rest of us are actually going to do what is in fact altruistically and benevolently in humanity's best interest. And
Mhm.
and I'm gonna keep worrying about the people that are in my life, and you and whoever's listening. I care about you too. Thank you so much for, giving us your time and attention. I greatly appreciate that more than a lot of things, because those are currencies that, are really valuable. So thank you, Brett, for having me once again. I really appreciate it. But I gotta
Yeah,
get going
got to go
soon.
do life, man. I appreciate you, man. I got to go take care of my little kitty. So I appreciate you, dude. And we'll chat again soon. And until next time, stay blessed and don't forget to tip your bud tenders.
Peace.